Hello and welcome to the Omnex webinar, Key Changes in ISO 14001 and ISO 9001 standards, including AS9100, IATF 16949, VDA 6.3, and ISO 13485 sector standards. Today's presenters include Chad Keimel. Chad Keimel is the CTO and founder of Omnex, an international consulting and training organization headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Chad is currently on the writing committees for Documented Information Standard ISO 10013, as well as ISO 26262 for functional safety, ISO 9001 for quality management systems, ISO 14001 for environmental management systems, ISO 45001 for health and safety management systems. He is also the U.S. expert on ISO 14068 for greenhouse gas management and climate change management. Another presenter for today's webinar is Martin Hetwer. Martin Hetwer is the Managing Director of Omnex Europe. He is also the Director of Integrated Management Systems and a Senior Consultant and Certified Corporate Trainer for Omnex. Another presenter today is Michael Checketts. Michael Checketts is a veteran of 40+ years in the medical device industry, working with both OEMs and first-tier suppliers. The final presenter today is Craig Thompson, and Craig Thompson is the General Manager of Omnex Plantech, and he possesses extensive quality management, process improvement, lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, and problem-solving expertise. During this webinar, if you have any questions for the presenters, please enter them in the Q&A box, and they will get to them to the best of their ability at the end of the webinar. This webinar is an hour and a half long, so we should have plenty of time for questions. Please note that there are 2 polls during this webinar, so be aware of your screen and answer the polls as quickly as possible, and we will move on with the webinar. All right, Chad, you can take it away.
Hey, Miles, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. So the webinar today is about changes that have already started for 14001 and ISO 9001 standards. As we all know, this has a ripple effect and affects all the other sector standards. Meanwhile, these sector standards also are, they're very hard at work deciding what's best for the sector and how to improve the sector. So join me and the other experts here at Omnex as we fill you in on these changes that are in the process of taking place. I'll tell you this. This is some of the earliest times we have informed our customers of these changes. And this is the beginning of these changes. And you can imagine we'll keep giving you updates as we learn more. Though many of you know who we are and are repeat attendees of our webinars, we always have new attendees. So just to let you know, we're a 37 or 38-year organization headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have offices worldwide, and some things we are very proud of as of today is having helped or being a part of writing many of the standards we're going to talk to you about today. This is our global offices. I'll just keep going. Very, very global organization, as we have to be when we try to support our customers who are also worldwide. So we are very active in the automotive space, aerospace. Craig is going to talk to you about aerospace. I myself, but I'm also quite involved in writing aerospace standards. We're also very active in the semiconductor industry because the semiconductor industry pretty much always adopts either ISO 9001 or the automotive standards. They also do aerospace and medical devices, etc. And then we have a medical device industry we're very active in. And then let me just say the automotive industry is in the midst of a transition into electric and autonomous vehicles. This is a key subject near and dear to my heart, and a little bit of it will be mentioned as we talk about the automotive standards. All right, this is the 7-lever strategy for the automotive industry that we have taken, but many of these apply to aerospace. You'll see in AS9100 itself, they talk about cybersecurity standards, and you'll see that the new IA9100 also talks about, well, has IS9115 and a new standard 9125 in software. It's a little bit about the services we offer. Let me just move on. All right. So let me just say, Miles has told you about all the different standards committees I'm a part of. This is a little bit of what we do to offer back and give back to the industry. I do actually enjoy writing standards, and as people sometimes really get into certain things, I really enjoy writing standards. And you can see here, what do I want to say? You can see I've been in the industry, for the last 40 years, and happy to be able to help in the way we are. Martin is a managing director for Omnex Europe. He's specially coming in to talk to us about the VDA standards. Marty, I will ask you a few questions myself in terms of the classes and the changes to classes we're going to be thinking of when with all these new standards coming in from the VDA. Folks, the VDA, thank you, Marty. VDA is like the AIAG of, in Southfield, Michigan. We have the AIAG headquartered in Berlin, same as Omnex's Berlin office. And then we have Mike Checketts. Mike is on the medical devices committee. He has taken my place in the medical device, TC 283. 283, did I get that wrong? Sorry, Mike. I am his second now, and he'll come in to inform you of all the different standards in the medical device industry. So say hello to Mike Checketts. Has turned his camera on. Hi, Mike. We can't hear you, but all right, we can hear you.
There we go. How you doing?
Great.
Good to be part of this.
Great, Mike. Craig is actually in the middle of things. So is Marty. He's actually with customers today. Thank you for coming, Marty. Craig will join us a little bit later. He's our veteran aerospace industry specialist. All right. Without spending any more time, let's get right to it and talk to you about, I should have said ISO 9000, 9001, and 14001. Anyhow, that's the way I'll be starting. So I'm actually going to cover the first 3 subjects and the IATF changes, and then followed by our different experts here today. So without any further ado, here are the changes of the ISO 9000 standard. This ISO 9000 standard is very, very critical for every other sector standard. And why? What does ISO 9000 do for everyone? And everybody's excitedly saying terms and definitions. So if you do buy, any other standard other than your sector standard, which is, AS9100 is now called IA9100 or medical devices, you should also buy the ISO 9000. Many of the definitions in your standards are in ISO 9000. So ISO 9000 did a ballot in September 2023 whether it needed to be revised, okay? And you might say, wow, really? Yes. And the ballot passed with the majority voting in favor. The biggest comment everybody had was, hey, get the design specification completed and follow your design document, okay? And that's a very important document. And you can see here, 30 members were in favor, 13 were not, 20 abstained. Very crazy time in the industry in terms of, trying to read the leaves of how different people are thinking about things. And let's go on. So a design draft was planned to be presented in Rwanda October 9th through 13th. I did not attend the Rwanda meeting. I'd planned to, but I actually attended the aerospace standards the IAQG were meeting at the same time, and I'm helping write one of the standards for aerospace. So I chose to go to the aerospace, the IAQG meetings. But I hear that a design draft was presented, but I'll tell you a little bit more. The outcomes are not as clear, and revisions were expected to start in December. All right. So there were some discussions on the structure of ISO 9000. ISO 9000, you can say, is sort of two parts. One is concepts and principles, and then terms and definitions, and the concept relationships and their graphical representation. I was not there, but I do hear there's some discussions on the structure, and I just would leave it like that. Let them work it out, and we will know soon enough, and I'll update you probably in April sometime. So what is the plan for ISO 9000? Something they have never been able to do, that is make the changes in ISO 9000 before 9001. The idea would be, hey, we make the changes, this is ISO 9000, and then 9001 can use these when they write the standard, but they're always been late. And, sometimes even a year late in some years. So expect a 3-year life cycle similar to ISO 9001. I feel there's a lot of wherewithal in this ISO 9000 team, but the 9001 team always has the power in the TC 176, and all the sharpshooters are part of the ISO 9001 team, and sometimes the ISO 9000 team takes a back seat. Let's see if this year it could be a little different. So let me be cognizant of time. We have so much to cover for you today. Now, the ISO 9001 standard, interestingly enough, when they did what is called a systematic review in March 2021, the majority, there's two different, the majority said, I just want to confirm the existing standard. Let's wait to write the new standard. And then there's a small majority. The smaller group said, hey, let's make a change. So this discussion went through the strategic planning and the operations task group. And after much study, they thought it warranted a change. That's what those fancy words are. Although none of the sources of information reviewed provide sufficient evidence to justify an early revision, individually, collectively, the inputs warranted consideration, and then they started this design document. So Q2 and Q3, 2022, based on the recommendation to start, the 9001 design document was started and developed. It was completed in Q1 of 2023. And then they did a survey for the revision in Q2 and Q3. So 9001 is on its way. Expect a 3-year revision life cycle and a release in 2026 or 2027. We will try to present to you what is happening in the thick of things. They're usually, it's still very early. We haven't even got a working draft. Then it'll go to a CD, a change draft, and then it'll get voted into a DIS. and then a FDIS, and so on, and then a IS. Okay, so it goes through many revisions, and the standard gets beat into shape, folks. I'll get you all excited in the CD changes, but really don't get excited. It's a really good process of change of how everything works out. All right, what did they say are the factors impacting ISO 9001 changes? There is an Annex SL. This is the Annex. So if you are going to be this management systems person and you are going to follow Omnex and learn all about these great things we're presenting to you, which we will, you should know what the high-level structure is, okay? There is a high-level structure and an Annex SL that they debated and debated and debated, and they have finally released. This Annex SL should be what is followed by every management system standard. Some small changes are there in Annex SL. It's basically in clause 10. I'll tell you more about that, but 14,001 also has to follow it. Global changes, basically this COVID and supply chain, they look as factors impacting. They want to clarify risks and opportunities. They want to do away with retain and maintain undocumented information. There are technology changes that now we have to keep into mind as we go through all the management system standard, and they want to focus on auditability. So these are some of the factors impacting ISO 9001. And when they do this change, they are going to consider, efforts and benefit. And there'll actually be a scoring to make sure these changes, number one, what is the effort in your management system? This is our management system in the organizations, that are implementing the ISO 9001. What is the effort? What is the benefit coming out of it? And then, are you really following are you adhering to the design specification goals? Based on these three factors, they will decide whether to include the revision or not. Okay, that is two of the standards here. I am actually halfway done with my part of the presentation, okay? So here then is ISO 14001. The ISO 14001, we actually have a working draft. It started with the ad hoc group that started writing all the different changes. They used a number of sources to come up with recommendations and a design specification. Really, no new requirements except there's a clarification in clause 10 of Annex SL that says, you'll see that in clause 10. I'll tell you later, so let me not preempt myself. And they are actually working on a 2-year project. So if everything goes well, again, also 14,001 takes a backseat to 9,001. With Annex SL, they are free to go forward on their own. And if things go right, you might see in the end of 2025 or early 2026, ISO 14001 standard. There is a guidance standard which goes with 14,001 called 14,004. No decision yet from the ISO TC 207 on this general guidelines for implementation. The 14,001, so sorry, it's not quite in order. It's nothing to do with 14,004, but 14,001, why we have, there's so much more information we will learn as part of the TC 176 is the convener is a US, TC 207 member, Susan Briggs. And the co-convener is Robert Pachulik from Poland, okay? So this is what's going on with 14,001. These are the small changes that I identified in the working draft. They have followed the high-level structure of Annex SL. I see a little typo in XL and SL, and now I myself am confused, okay? Intended outcome is now called intended result. Same thing, but they've changed the wording. Output is now called result. And outsourced processes are defined as externally provided processes, products, or services. That already had been applied in ISO 9001. ISO 14001 is applying it. And here is a big, small change in Annex XL. It says continual improvement needs to be there before non-conforming material, non-conformance and corrective action. So they are making that change. What do they see as a substantive changes? They removed documented from the definition of audit. Maintain and retain documented information to documented information shall be available. They did not think there was enough value to say maintain documented information, retain documented information. Maintain meant sort of, document control, and retain meant records. Right? If you didn't know that, that's the way ISO 9001 and 14001 had interpreted it. I can't even say that. But now they'll just say documented information shall be available. There's a new clause, 6.3, planning of changes. Again, was already there in ISO 9001. 14001 did not have that. A new requirement to define audit objectives. Changes in management review. What is a change there? I think planning of changes comes into management review. Inputs required versus considered. New input, of course, is changes in needs and expectations. This is for management review. Again, folks, don't get excited. It's too early to be excited about any specific change. There'll be many back and forth on these changes. And keep in mind, it's a working draft right now. Folks, I will take a little 30-second, well, I'm going to be asking a question shortly. Take some time now to see if you have any questions for Q&A, and we'll answer that in the very end. We should have at least about 10 minutes, I think, to answer any questions. So we answer a lot of times as the first come, first serve. All right, now this is the change. Remember we said, substantive change, remove documented. Well, this is here. It says a systematic and independent and documented process, and they're removing the word documented, okay? So, in the end of the day, I don't think it really impacts your own management system. Most of you are documenting your management, your audit process. So just continue doing it. Removing it doesn't need you to go and remove your documented process. Putting in a documented process for audits is a good thing, so don't worry about it. And it's more for the auditors. I think in the end of the day, I think most people, except very small organizations, are going to document everything, okay? So anyhow, I encourage you not to be too concerned. It's going to be our job letting you know when it hits DIS, we'll start taking these changes more seriously. But we will try to add things. Now I'm a little bit disappointed in myself. I had wanted to put more on, the process approach in ISO 14001, but this working draft went so fast. I did not get a chance to put that comment in that I'd like to see more process approach in ISO 14001. All right, with that said, I believe we have this question for the sector standards. I'd see if you can apply this. I'd like to know what all of you are interested in as we go through this section on sector standards. So we'll be covering now for you the automotive standards. Martin Hetwer will come in from Berlin and answer VDA standards. Then Mr. Mike Checketts will do medical device, and Craig Thompson will come back and do aerospace, all right? Would be very interested in knowing, what all of you are interested in. Let's give another 15 seconds or so. Miles? Okay, why don't we pull the poll? All right, lots of interest. So I don't know if you can see this. If all of you can see the results, 87% of you are interested in 9001, 60% are in 14,001, 77% are interested in automotive. Out of the 30 who voted, many of you didn't vote, and VDA about 40%, and then medical device a little less, 20%, and aerospace standards 33%. Okay, thank you very much. So let's get right into this automotive standards that a lot of you are interested in. And I have about 10 minutes to finish up on this. So IATF 16949 will not be revised until ISO 9001 changes are clear. Soon as the timeline and changes to 9001 are clear, IATF 16949 will start. They're in you can think about a pre-planning phase right now. And soon they will formulate the key changes they need to be incorporated. So that's the status of IATF. Don't expect anything soon. IATF, I hope it comes a year after the 9001 comes in, and it doesn't wait till 2 years or something like that. So, all right. Meanwhile, the core tools are getting updated, and they're taking orders for the new APQP and control plan in December. And I think March is when they will be releasing copies of it. Sometimes it comes out much earlier than that. There's a new APQP and control plan, folks. APQP has many changes, but does not fundamentally change. We at Omnex think with the advent of the electric vehicle and the autonomous vehicle standards that the V model needs to come into APQP, and we will advise you of that. In fact, when we do this new standard, I'll do a poll of our experts. I think you may or may not know, 3 of the writers of the core tools are in Omnex, and Mr. Dan Reed, who was part of the task force when all the core tools first came out, also is there, and we'll discuss whether we should talk about maybe we'll have 2 classes. One is a classic APQP, and the other one was APQP with the V model. The control plan has many changes and maybe is the more significant of the two documents that are coming out. So what about the FMEA? You all know the AIG VDA FMEA has already been out. It's becoming more and more needed, but this is not an update. It has not been updated. But I just wanted to say the other 2 then are the MSA and SPC, and a joint work with VDA and AIG has been kicked off. What about this APQP key changes? It is now a gated phase for APQP, and it's we always said there were gates, but they are pointing out of this gated phases with a documentation checklist for each of the phases before they move on to the next phase. And this phases now also include a supplier review, keeping in mind the APQP of the customer impacts definitely significantly the supplier also. They've added a parts traceability section and added a section on sourcing and change management. okay? Though I mentioned this, though they say electric vehicles are one of the big changes, this V model not coming is a little disappointing to me personally. All right, here's a control plan, and let's see why. This control plan was in the back of the APQP manual, and there wasn't very much meat in it. Now it's its own manual, and this is the table of contents. You can see here, there's a whole flow chart in terms of how this control plan needs to be done, created, how it goes from pre-launch control plan to, the right before the PPAP into the after the PPAP. There's a whole flow chart of that development. Detailed guidelines on how to develop. A safe launch requirement has been added in, and then best practices in terms of how effectively you can use a control plan has all been added in. Some key changes: there's something called a correlation matrix for special characteristics, where you can even have your own special characteristics symbols, and you'll have a correlation matrix of how to understand it with the different symbols for your customers. A flow chart of development of the production control plan and safe launch practices are what we might call key changes in the control plan. All right. And I think, well, I'm actually a little bit ahead of myself, Marty. Let's pause here just for a second to see. Marty, would you like me to run the slides, or would you?
Sure, please. No, if you could do that for me, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah, let's just wait just for a second, just to see if, let people pause and see if there's time to write down any questions anybody has. So we're just about 30 seconds here. Marty, are you in Berlin today, or are you traveling somewhere else?
Today I'm down in Stuttgart.
Stuttgart.
I'm down in the southern half of Germany today. But thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Marty. So let's go ahead and get started. And this is the latest and greatest in terms of the VDA standards. And I'll just might ask you a couple of questions as we go along. So
Sure.
Go ahead.
So the first one that we've been talking about and hearing a lot about lately, as software becomes much, much more important in the development of aerospace and automotive vehicles, there is a standard out there for automotive SPICE. It's a system basically for evaluating how well the development of software happened. And so there's been a scope change, a significant scope change on the process assessment model. And so I think we're at model version 4. And so the VDA scope has also been identified with a number of process themes. And you can see here that we have a V model here for not only just for the software, but also for the system and hardware as well too. So, as software becomes much, much more prevalent in the industry today, we have to make sure that we have a robust method, mature method to develop software. And of course, that's going to be outlined here in the next version of the standard. And there is a new blue gold band that's expected to come out. Well, should be out anytime now. I'm not sure what the current status
Already
is.
out, Marty. So I'll just say this because sometimes so many multiple things are happening at Omnex. Ranjit and I did a Gate for SPICE event on the PAM A-SPICE 4.0. This is a new change. We did a 6-hour seminar for the folks, the A-SPICE assessors, and it was a sold-out event. And we went through all the high-level changes in A-SPICE 4.0, the impact on scope, and also the guidelines. Okay, so it was supposed to come out, as you say, well, I think maybe the next slide. Expected in Q4. It was expected to come out in October, and it hasn't come out yet. But sometimes even I'm a little remiss in terms of where it is. Go ahead, sir.
So the other thing that's out there, and it's been around for a while, is the MMOGLE, which is a materials management guideline for logistics. And so that's been out there for a while. And now, of course, with this AIAG standard, the VDA wanted to update their 6.8 document. And so they're confirming that in the new version of 6.3, 6.8 was trimmed for logistics processes. This now VDA 6.8 has been amended to have a number of other additional processes to be audited. With that said, because this is going to balloon up for a global standard now, a global MMOG standard, it could take up to 5 days to audit your logistics processes based on the size of your facilities and the activities that happen there. So just know there is a new standard coming, and we want to start looking heavily at logistics to see if there's anything there that we need to change or to make sure that's a little bit more robust. Okay,
Marty,
next slide, please.
will you be writing a class for the global MMOG for our customers?
So when we do see that, it will be available for us to roll out to the world. So we'll work that in conjunction with those people that are developing those standards. But yes,
I have so many different questions to ask, but we'll talk about it another time. Okay. Go ahead.
So the other thing that's kind of unique is that, as we saw with VDA, the German Automobile Authorities or Association, and the AIAG, with the release of the harmonized AIAG VDA FMEA standard a couple of years ago, there is now a push to harmonize the SPC standards, or statistical process control, between the Automotive Industry Action Group and the VDA Method 4.0. There's also an ISO standard out there, but those are the big ones. So they're going to be looking at more specifically in the VDA band for the methods that are there, and some of the methods that are in there, of course, are related to not only 8D but also how to do SPC. So that's going to be new. That's going to be interesting to see how they harmonize those things. We know that we have different thoughts, or different methods or different concepts are being applied around this topic of how we handle statistical process control. So it'll be awfully interesting to see what they come up with at the end of the day. And as soon as, of course, this gets published, we'll have classes for this one as well too. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. One of the things that I can say, sorry, if you just want to go back to that for just 1 second. The people that wrote the original standards all work for Omnex, which is something that I think we don't always get credit for. So those people that wrote the original standards, they work for us, and the people working on the new standards also work for us well. And Chad, of course, being one of those individuals, and Mike Checketts as well. So let's carry on, please. Sorry. VDA 5 is out there, and so they're looking at understanding some of the risks of measurement system analysis plans. Obviously, if you can't measure it, you can't make it, right? We've always said that. If you can't measure it, you can't make it. And so to have a robust plan, or measurement system analysis plan, is one of the first things that we have to do. And so there's going to be an update with regards to understanding the risks of measurement system analysis and how to plan to do that. And one of the areas that they're doing that is in torque systems and torque system measurements, but that's not the only area, but that's just one of those areas that are out there. Again, nobody really has a crystal ball, as Chad said, and so we'll see when things happen. All right, next, please. The other thing that's out there and we need to consider is the definition of new parts. And so there's much greater emphasis on different levels of parts as we introduce them. And so we want to understand what is how to conduct a risk assessment for new parts, and how do we classify those categories for different things. And there's a traffic light system for doing that. And so we'll find that in the standards as well too. So whether we're talking about APQP or whether we're talking about RGA standards, and both, by the way, both you'll find in IATF, they're both there now. And so we need to do that. So as we move forward with a PPAP and PPAP analysis, that we do a good job with our APQP or new product development processes. Next, please. Process audits. VDA 6.3 is the process audit, and there's going to be a much greater emphasis on the integration and the development of software. So we talked earlier, we started this discussion today about ASPICE, but we're also going to have to be able to have a process to audit that framework. And so these two things tie in together. And so you really can't, if we're talking about ASPICE, we also have to talk about automotive cybersecurity, which is, of course, another standard that's out there, 21434. And so how do they work together? How do we know that the software that's being developed will be done in a secure way so that our vehicles and the information inside our vehicles won't be disturbed or hijacked by some party? And so there is, like I said, placing much greater emphasis on the integration of software into the process audit. So 6.3 for process audit.
Hey, Marty, a new VDA 6.3 had already come out. Is this yet
2022,
another
right.
change? Or is
Yeah,
it
this
that VDA 6.3 you're talking about?
No, there is a change that came out, but there is greater emphasis on software. This is the point of this slide here, is that there's a greater emphasis in there, right? But it will tie into things like ASPICE and automotive security or cybersecurity. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add just so that there's a new MSA and SPC coming out. And the people who are writing it work for OEMs and tier ones, okay? So some of our folks who wrote the ones for the older standards, I don't believe are part of that committee, all right? Just to clarify that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that was a little bit misleading, but that's correct statement, right? Yeah, very good.
Okay.
The next part that's out there is a new yellow band out there for product compliance. And so understanding that legal and regulatory compliance and compliance management is important for all organizations out there. We want from an organizational standpoint to make sure that we've got good governance for compliance. And so the current standard that is out there is for product integrity, or for the role, for those of you that work with some of the German OEMs, there's a requirement to have a PSCR role or have certification for a PSCR role. And to complement that role, they'll be releasing a new standard on product compliance, right? I don't know that it will, according to the standard, don't know if it'll replace product integrity, but it'll certainly complement product integrity. So if you look at both, they do talk about compliance and where we need to start thinking about that in the development of the product and the product life cycle. Next,
So
please.
This is a standard I'm personally would be interested in. I don't know if I know Miles mentioned it when I got introduced, that I helped write a standard on quality culture, okay? So, and there's a specific way we instill quality culture in an organization, which is spelled out in the standard ISO 10010. And interestingly, it is a part now of the aerospace standard, not ISO 10010, but the idea of a quality culture. So very interested in knowing how this VDA standard brings in this culture for compliance management. I think all of us are concerned, especially when you talk about safety and regulations and things like that. Some of the big hits organizations take is when actually very top level management suddenly have lapses in judgment, and then the organization then adopts practices which are not very ethical. We saw that in IATF 16949 when it came in, right? Because there were some big senior level issues that happened. So look forward to seeing this and maybe writing a class with you on, how does our organization bring in quality culture and this compliance management? There's so many things. I really believe it sometimes even in a country where they take certain things lightly, not the US, by the way, and you see that, and I think it comes right from a judicial system onwards, how we take things seriously. Anyhow, it's an area of interest, personally, and I don't know how our audience thinks of their own organization in terms of how we take regulations, how we take compliance this here, when you say compliance, of course, I think regulations, okay? But I also think conformance, which is sort of a little bit on the quality culture.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's why I said, when we talk about conformance, we're talking about product integrity. You're conforming to the standards and requirements. Okay, go on to the next one, please.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, we want to have time for Craig and Mike.
I know we have,
And the last
time.
one
I'm carefully watching our time.
Okay. So my last one here is new information security assessment workbook. So it just recently came out in the last month or so. Is the
You may
version
want
6.
to sort of introduce your role in terms of TISAX and what you've been doing for TISAX. And I don't know if everybody in the audience who might know what is TISAX. So since we have, we actually have 4 minutes left in your segment, you may want to take some time and talk a little bit about TISAX, because maybe our audience doesn't know what is even in TISAX.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they call themselves, or ENX calls it in conjunction with the VDA, is TSAX, and it is a framework of controls for protection goals for confidentiality, integrity, and availability of company assets and data. And so anybody that shares data with their partners needs to get or should be getting an assessment label based on the activities that they take and the information that they share with their partners, to make sure that we don't that data doesn't go missing or gets corrupted or gets stolen. And so that's kind of the whole point. You should have an information security management system, which is a different standard. It's ISO 27001. And that management system has in it an Annex A that has a number of controls, and those controls are actually the controls that we see in TSAX, right? And so, yes, for the last few years, Omnex has been, especially Omnex Europe and North America, have been doing a lot of training and awareness work for organizations that are obligated to implement TSAX. And with that, I will pass the presentation off to Michael. Thanks.
Marty, there's this idea of not product cybersecurity, but cybersecurity is a running theme in IATF 16949, okay? It doesn't call for any kind of a cybersecurity, but it recommends at one point ISO 27001. That's in the IATF 16949. Then here comes TISAX from Europe, putting controls in place. So it'll be a question I see that we'll ask you later. Do you implement it? You don't have to answer it now, whether you implement TISAX with 27001 or not. And when you come back later, we can talk about that. And with that, I'll have Mr. Mike Checketts talk to you about medical devices. And Mike, shall I run the slides for you also?
You sure? That'd be fine.
Absolutely. Great.
All right. In the medical device sector, the most significant change taking place right now is the upcoming incorporation of 1345 by a reference to the FDA's regulatory requirement, 21 CFR 820. The name is being changed to QMSR, Quality Management System Regulation, from the standard QSR. And most paragraphs of the standard will now be replaced by ISO 1345. But many of the paragraphs will also be retained, as shown in the following slide.
Okay.
You notice that this is right out of the published high-level mapping kind of thing from the FDA when they first announced this. The items highlighted in red and bold, black, are the parts that are going to be retained. Everything else is going to be replaced or referenced from 13485, and they will no longer be in Part 820. So that's this isn't intended to be a requirement by requirement analysis, but rather a high-level mapping of subparts, clauses of the standard and the QS regulation for reference purposes. While there are a lot of differences specifically identified in subpart D, document requirements exist in most subparts and clauses of the standard and in the QS regulation.
Okay, so Mike, what is holding the I know there's some, what is holding back this? Because we heard about this even 1 year ago, or even before that.
Yeah, you're a good straight man for the next slide. The biggest thing right now is a waiting period and to get all the documents or all the changes published in the next proposed edition. We just finished concluded in 24 on 24 May a 90-day public comment period. And now the FDA is going through dotting I's, crossing T's on that proposed edition. We expect, even though they haven't announced it, the expectation is fourth quarter of this year, which in all intents and purposes means December, late December, or maybe even January. Kind of depends on their reaction to a lot of the questions that came out in this 90-day comment period. A few of those comments are such as we need a deliberate rollout preferred. Typically, implementation will be 1 year from publish date, but the requests are for a 2 and even 3-year transition period. Keep in mind, most device manufacturers have not needed to be compliant to 13485. Rather, they did have to maintain compliance to 21 CFR 820. Now, understanding that all of those standards are very, very similar, they've not had to certify to 13485. And this change will undoubtedly require them to become certified before you end up with a 510K. But that is still to be determined and we need to read the published document to do that. Also, they need to replace the current QSIT, or the quality system inspection. A new guide and a new inspection approach will undoubtedly be required. We also need a guidance document for risk management. For those unfamiliar with or really unfamiliar with 13485, ISO 14971 is referenced and is expected to perhaps have a bigger role in 13485, but kind of get ahead of myself here. Again, ISO 13485 certification will undoubtedly be required, as it is in Canada or the European community, which require certification prior to granting market approval to sell their products. If you need more information, at the bottom of this slide, there's an address on the FDA website that you can read more about this particular change.
Thank you, Mike.
FDA guidance document releases other than 21 CFR 820. There is a final guidance for remanufacturing of medical devices just issued last month. A submission recommendation for predetermined change control plans for artificial intelligence or machine learning enabled device software functions. That final guidance was published, I believe, the 25th, or at least that week of last month. In addition, there's a draft guidance that's coming out, that has come out at the same during the same week for the AI machine learning enabled device software functions, talking about the life cycle management considerations and pre-market submission recommendations. So that's something new that has not occurred yet.
So I'll tell you, being somebody who's thick of AI at Omnex, the biggest part of, when you implement requirements for AI, you don't know how to verify it. Does it make sense? Because it all depends on, how it's reading that situation, and what kind of samples do you put in and to make it come out, and just make sure it's performing in the right way, because there could be 10,000 different ways it could react based on the information it's getting. I'm thinking more of the perception system of a car, maybe
Sure.
less, in terms of but the same thing happens with a medical device. If it's supposed to interpret this, this, and this, and it's supposed to make an outcome happen, how do we know if it's working or not working? So these are all things. Also, in the ASPICE requirements, we have 5 new processes for AI and machine learning. So this is something we should all take a good look at.
Yeah, I'm kind of proud of the medical device sector right now, because they've typically lagged as much as a decade behind the automotive sector in standards, but they're nipping at the tailcoat of the automotive sector right now, and reacting very nicely with some of their recommendations and standards, if you will, behind the automotive sector, which with AI is a big thing right now with automotive. So we're learning a lot from them.
I know you just finished a ISO 62304 class. I don't know if it is inside for our organization or just open enrollment, but we're not going to talk about ISO 62304. But it's interesting, though. It also is it's like a very similar to ASPICE, and it has a V model sort of built in without calling it out completely, and looks for traceability and things like that. And so, as a ASPICE assessor, I find 62304 very understandable, very easy to understand. But it's also something that came very fast. But I don't know if the medical industry, device industry, latches onto it and has some kind of parameters when they should invoke 62304. Because if they don't, they're going to get a lot of quality issues in the product, because that's what for software you need to follow some discipline.
Yeah, I think ISO 62304 anticipated that, and there's a big section. One of the clauses is specifically on legacy products that haven't been developed according to 62304. So what do you do? How do you handle it? That sort of thing. So it's I think we're starting to come along very well.
We should we all the software people in different sectors should put our heads together and discuss these changes. Mike, you were
Yeah.
going to say something else. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just jumping to the next slide.
Okay.
Here for other standard changes. So we kind of talked a lot about the 820 part of the Code of Federal Regulations. Other standard changes in 1345. We're not jumping right into 1345 because of the change of 21 CFR 820 being adopted. So I expect it will be as late as 2025. Oh, 2024 could be, but those changes will probably wait till the dust settles after the FDA incorporates the existing 1345 2016 into their standard. Potentially, some of the changes that are being kicked around is adopting the same high-level structure as other ISO standards. Also, the possibility of eliminating the preventive action portion, clause 853. And move that to the front of the standard where the criteria is adopted throughout all clauses. As you are aware, all clauses in 1345 are preventive in nature. So if 853 is adopted throughout the change, it becomes redundant to include it as a separate clause by itself. And question mark. Who knows what else is coming? We're discussing a lot of things, but nothing real definitive as yet. I mentioned the 14971 risk management becoming more integrated and perhaps normative to 1345, but that is upcoming, as well as some changes to 14971 I might mention right now. With these updated versions of machine learning by the FDA, last month on the 25th of October, as a matter of fact, there was a submission made by Amy to ANSI to adopt a machine learning AI addendum. We're not sure whether it's going to be considered an annex or if it will be 34971. We are, meaning Amy, is trying to make sure that it is a separate guidance document, but it might be adopted as an annex by ANSI. So the poll is still to be taken on that. We're not really sure what it's going to be adopted as.
Okay, I'll just mention one thing, and without going into it, but there's another common thread in aerospace, automotive, and medical devices, which is sort of the hazard analysis, risk analysis. Okay, and various ways that each of the industries are handling it, and maybe some sort of a common practice Omnex can build in. Okay.
All right. Cybersecurity. We've been talking about a lot of that in other industries. The FDA is adopting an aggressive role in medical device cybersecurity. The FDA has statutory authority to regulate medical devices, and as such, the risk associated with cybersecurity falls right on the FDA also. Are there any federal regulations optional to cybersecurity? Right now, there aren't. Let me put it this way: there's guidelines that will need to be followed. There isn't right now a part in 21 CFR that deals directly with cybersecurity, but I believe
what they
it's
said,
just
Mike,
it's just
is
a matter
that
of time.
cybersecurity is not optional,
Yeah.
and that where the QSR calls for manufacturers to address risks even though it's not called out specifically, one of those risks is cybersecurity. So gosh darn, you got to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. We have some guidance documents for industry here. The statutory authority on September 27th, the FDA issued these guidance documents, cybersecurity and medical devices, quality system considerations, and content of pre-market submissions. And this final guidance updates a draft guidance of the same title issued on April 8th, 22, which has been discussed in an alert by Ropes and Gray and replaces the agency's 2014 final guidance. That was pre-market submissions for management of cybersecurity in medical devices.
So if I could point something out here, Mike, that's, you know, we said this is guidance. So what they have said, what the FDA said is, look, it's only guidance, but you can just follow the guidance, or if you do something different, you need to make sure you can demonstrate how it meets, you know, the requirements in the regulation, you know. So I think the safest way is to maybe follow the guidance, you know, so you don't get challenged.
Yeah. As medical devices have grown more integrated with wireless, internet, and network connected systems, portable media, etc., the FDA has grown increasingly concerned about risks to medical devices safety and effectiveness arising from insufficient, robust cybersecurity controls. In its newly finalized guidance, the FDA notes that cyber incidents have rendered medical devices and hospital networks inoperable, which have disrupted the delivery of patient care. To address this important security issue, the FDA is contracted with MITRE, M-I-T-R-E, an independent company, to develop next steps towards managing legacy medical device cybersecurity risks. They just 2 days ago, MITRE has issued a report which builds on work previously done by the medical or the Health Sector Coordinating Council and the IMDRF, which most of you should recognize as the International Medical Device Regulators Forum. And this report recommends and outlines practical approaches and recommendations that can further drive sector-wide legacy device cyber risk management efforts. So it's a 25-page report, and you can identify that or find it online by contacting the Division of Industry and Consumer Education. So that's available. It's available at no cost to download it, and I've got it. I haven't read all of it. I've started to breeze through it, but I think it's a good next step. So
Mike, you and I will plan on coming up with our training on product cybersecurity. I'll say cybersecurity, and there's a question how, for both aerospace and medical devices, how the cybersecurity would take shape. Maybe this would be one of the first discussions we can have here. How has automotive gone? Should aerospace and medical devices go the same way? We'll discuss it right after Craig is finished, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Good. With that said, we have a poll before Mr. Thompson goes. And thank you, Mike. Thank you very
no problem.
much. So just interested in knowing, you're seeing now in sectors where we have cybersecurity, information security, you know, as part of the specific cybersecurity standard. There's several other standards, and then software-related standards. which ones of those apply to you is another question we wanted to ask. We'll give you another 30 seconds, and then we'll take the poll down. That, Miles, maybe we can see here. Oh, 88%. So cybersecurity is a big deal. Maybe your software, half have even software. So very interesting. Cybersecurity, 27,001, Marty, is about 30%. Okay. So good to know. With that, let me turn things over to Craig. Craig, shall we go right into it?
Yep, that's fine. Morning, everybody. Glad everybody could be here. I do apologize if there's any background noise, but I can't control what goes on next door, right? So you can only control so much in your risk management. But jumping right into this, AS9100, just so everybody knows, and some of you might not know, it is transferring over to the IA9100, and it's going to replace the AS version, the EN version, and also the JISQ version, right? So we're going to one global international aerospace standard, which is what the IA stands for. Currently, just so everybody knows, it is in a coordination draft. So it's, one step closer. Right now, the plan is for next year for it to be released. Right now, they're targeting Q3, but it may be a little sooner or a little bit later. We all know, kind of depends on what kind of comments come back from the coordination draft. Product safety is one of the other key changes. They're going to add a clause 8.13. They're going to include more information on safety management in regards to product safety, as well as, both sides of that, whether it's the product, making sure it's safe to the end user and the consumer, as well as safe for the operator. Also, information security, which we just talked about just a minute ago with the cybersecurity. It is getting to be bigger, like Chad said, in all of the different industries, and they are actually creating within IA9100 its own clause. So 717 will be a specific clause around information security, and they're also going to add some things to 8.1 around operational planning and control. The clause is not going to specifically say ISO 27001, but it kind of heads you in that direction, right? It's kind of implied. Some other things they're going to add is quality culture. That's going to be spread out throughout the standard. In quite a few places you're going to see the word quality culture, but they are going to specifically add it in clause 714 about your environment for your processes. They're going to add some things about quality culture, and they're taking those requirements from the ISO 110. Right? Counterfeit parts, which we've all struggled with, right? All organizations within aerospace have kind of had some ups and downs with counterfeit parts, especially around getting definitions. But they are going to expand 814 to include more counterfeit parts and more definitions surrounding what needs to happen and what it actually is. MSA, for material or measurement system analysis, they are going to add a note to clause 715. And they're also going to add a note to clause 8 around control plans. They are not going to expand on the how. They're just going to say, hey, you need to do these things. The how you do it is completely up to you. Currently, there is no aerospace standard on MSA or control plans. Control plans kind of come from AS9145, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But there's no specifics on here's how you have to do MSA. So right now, a lot of organizations that are currently doing it have reached out to the automotive side and are using the blue books there. Go ahead, Chad. Thank you. So clause 81K, they're going to add a new K now. It only went to J before. They're adding K, and it's going to be about the FOD, right? Foreign object debris and foreign object damage. For those that don't know, the capital D is for damage, small d is for debris. And they're also going to add some things to 843K around the same thing around FOD and how those requirements are flowed down to suppliers. Ethical behavior is going to be added, so similar to quality culture in quite a few different sections. They are going to discuss having that ethical behavior as well as ethical training that's going to be annually for most organizations. Statutory and regulatory requirements. Excuse me. They are putting more requirements that specify within the IA9100 that say statutory and regulatory requirements take precedent over your QMS requirements as well as your customer requirements, right? So which one out of the three is more stringent? That's what you have to go by. There has been some lax lately in the statutory and regulatory requirements as far as organizations goes. They are making some other changes. Process identification, process verification, continual improvement. They're going to make some additions there, some more definitions, more information, as well as using AIM, which stands for Aerospace Improvement Maturity Model, right? And AIM is really designed to how well is our QMS performing, right? And how can we get from just barely having a certificate on the wall to actually being world-class aerospace supplier, which is what AIM's designed for. Okay. Like I said, IAF, when I first put this together, it was only in the working draft, but just the other day, I think it was like 2 days ago, the coordination draft was released. So, like I said, it's projected for publication in October of 2024. And then, of course, you'll have the standard 18 months to be implemented. So go ahead, Chad.
Greg, little confusion. You and I both were at the AAQG and the IAQG meetings. They, I didn't see them clearly saying that the way they said one of the options was publishing it in 2024. They were going to play a little bit of a wait and see attitude to look at the impact for ISO 9001. I'll just throw that in there.
Yep. Yeah, so that's why I said it is projected for October right now, but like I said, it could be a little later, right? We all know.
Yeah.
Some other things that are going to be changing, 9145. So for those that don't know, AS9145 is the aerospace APQP standard. Automotive has the APQP blue books, right? For PFMEA, PPAP, MSA. All that is rolled into one standard in aerospace for AS9145. Okay, but it is also going to be moving to IA9145. Again, it's going to be that global standard and take the place of the AS and the EN and the JISQ. Flow down requirements throughout the supply chain. They're going to put more definition around that, as well as how to handle the oversight of your suppliers' APQP programs. Okay. There's also going to be more definition because the majority of aerospace suppliers are not design responsible, right? So they're going to put a few more requirements in and a few more definition on how to handle things when you're not design responsible, which again is the majority of the suppliers, right? So one of the big things that they're going to focus on is defining those roles and responsibilities within your APQP program. Who is specifically responsible for what different activities and what different phases, and how those reviews and the phase gates need to be completed. Okay? They're also going to enhance the requirements for PPAP submittals. Right now, there's only 11 elements for PPAP submittal within AS9145. There is some talk that could increase to 14 or 15. Enhanced requirements so those are going to be coming as well. And then it's projected to be early 2025. It has not gone out for coordination draft. It's not even in the pre-draft stage yet. They are still just working on it. So.
Will I take this one on?
Yep, go ahead.
Rick. So I'm on the committee for the 9115. I joined a little too late but as a part of the ballot dispositioning for the third ballot for the 9125. So 9125 is going to go through a reballot. For those of you who don't know what is IA 9125, it's a new standard, and it's for non-deliverable software. So deliverable software is in the product. The non-deliverable could be software used in your design, manufacture, inspection, test, acceptance, calibration process. So
Right.
these non-deliverable software could affect the outcome of the product. So they want it developed in a very thought out, well-made manner. Okay. So this 9125 is going to go through another vote soon. So we have just started working on IA 9115 deliverable software. I was part of the committee last time it went through the changes. And I am hoping with all the different software standards I'm involved with in the other sectors, I can be of some value added to IA 9115. And I do believe the aerospace standard needs a little bump up in a couple of different places. So very much in the beginning stages for 9115. Go ahead, Craig.
No, thank you, Chad. And on that 9125, the biggest area that for most aerospace suppliers is going to be that testing. Yep.
Gosh, just
It's
jumped.
the testing and the acceptance, so those ATPs and things like that, that software is going to be one of the key focuses of 9125. Yep. Go ahead. Thank you,
A
Chad.
lot of great interest in that standard.
Yep. So there's also going to be some improvements to the SCMH, or the Supply Chain Management Handbook, right? They're going to add some things around 3.2 for first article inspections, a little bit of clarification, right? They're also going to add some things about design risk analysis section in 2.8. And like I said, the majority of suppliers are not design responsible, but there are some risks with the supplier, even though you're not design responsible, of how they handled their design activities on the front end, right, at the OEM. Okay. Again, they're going to add some more FOD risk assessments. They're actually going to define that and have a standardized checklist that you can use at your organization for how to check for FOD. They're also adding a supplier capability assessment questionnaire in section 414. And this is going to be for when you're onboarding your suppliers, right? We all go do a lot of audits, and can they perform? Can they meet the standards? Can they meet our volume? But one of the things that they want to focus on is, do they actually have the ability to make the products that you're asking for? That's one of the big things. And then section 715.1, I'm on the committee now for writing this standard, and we're writing a standard for remote technologies for audits and product acceptance. More and more organizations are going to virtual type activities, right? We've kind of found that out since 2020. And now it's feeding into the audits and actual witnessing testing, product testing, or witnessing product acceptance and inspection, right? Why we were in the committee, one of the lovely ladies that was there does work with the certification bodies, and she says they are going to be increasing their virtual audits or their remote audits from 30% to 50% over the next few years. So we are writing a standard around that that'll be coming out. There is not a number yet that has not been given to our committee, but we are writing a standard on that as well. So.
Craig, any thoughts on why they're increasing the number of remote audits?
I think some of it has to do with they're slowly running out of auditors, right? There's not a lot of new third-party auditors coming in, and some of the ones that are a little longer in the auditing career are getting towards the retirement. And there's not enough new ones coming in as far as third-party auditors go. So more and more are going to be done virtually, I think, and less of the older auditors are actually traveling again. So that's another reason for it. Yeah.
It is true. We've had a number of older consultants and auditors all retire.
Yep. These are just some new additions. Like I said, remote application of information communication technologies. That's the standard we're actually writing around that section of the Supply Chain Management Handbook. There's also a new version of OASIS that's out. Version 3 is being developed. It was released in October 2023 to a few suppliers, not all of the supply base within aerospace. They are trying to work out some of the bugs currently on how to upload information and different things like that. And then the other big one is AIM, right? So the Aerospace Improvement Maturity Model, it's changing from 1.0 to 1.1. And what this is for to help organizations get from, barely passing an audit to, yay, we're finally certified and now we can do work for everybody, to actually a world-class aerospace supplier. And it's more of a roadmap and a checklist. It's meant to be self-evaluation on your organization, but you do have to be honest with yourself. So, and
So this
here,
standard,
go ahead.
this AIM is going to gain in importance, especially it's indirectly called out for in 10.3 of the IA 9100. Comments on that, and also I know you're championing training for this Omnex. You may just want to just talk a little bit about.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to go
so
next, Chad. So that was a great lead in.
Sorry.
So here at Omnex, we are putting together some training on AIM, as well as a standardized checklist to help organizations. Currently, when you go out to the OASIS website, you have to click on each module individually, and you can do it one module at a time. So we are developing a comprehensive checklist that takes all that information and rolls it up into one checklist. It'll make it easier for organizations to use, whether you do your assessments on a tablet or you want to print it off or you do it on a laptop, just to make it a little bit easier functionality wise. But we're also going to develop in a training class that should be out hopefully right after the first of the year on how to do these assessments and some training on that as well to get for organizations to get more involved. Yep.
Okay, so we have a little less than 5 minutes, and I think that's the end of the presentation. I want to do a couple of things for our participants and people who are listening in, and also for our different sector heads. Before that, I'll just tell you that, Omnex does a lot of public training, auditing courses, medical devices, VDA, and so on. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And if you guys could turn your cameras on, I'll do, let me just tell you the way automotive industry has gone, all right? The automotive industry has product cybersecurity. So if you're going to do cybersecurity, you got to protect the product and you have to protect your infrastructure, okay? Meaning, so cybersecurity hits could happen into your manufacturing, could happen into your IT, could be, so 2 types of cybersecurity is called out for. The aerospace standard and the medical devices standards are a little bit, I don't know if they know what they're saying. They're asking for both, but they're not sure. I don't think the people who wrote it know for sure. There's 2 different types of cybersecurity, and each are slightly different. Comments from Mike Checketts and Craig on that. Whether you think your customers, how far along are medical device customers for cybersecurity, Mike?
Well, it's interesting talking to people during my 6.2.3 or 4 sessions. Like you mentioned, I just came off of one, and it was an open enrollment. So it was and also previously with a couple of private companies teaching the same thing. They're all concerned that cybersecurity is important, and the existing standards recommendations don't spend a lot of time on cybersecurity. So a lot of people are interested in cybersecurity of their legacy devices that are out there. They've got apps that are used with their smartphones that people can just download, upload. I talked to a guy yesterday in one of the in the class that I was teaching, and their device is an app you can get online, just download it, that helps with people that are depressed modes. It's kind of an interactive program, and it's a class 3, so
Oh.
which is about
Highest risk.
yes, highest risk. Because if somebody takes the advice of this device and takes the device and ends up committing suicide, that becomes a risk to the company. Or if people come in and you know, with the cybersecurity thing and interfere with how that software operates, they could alter the amount of information, or limit the information, or interact inappropriately with that information. And so the company is very trepidatious, I guess, on the cybersecurity, and wants to be on top of whatever the techniques are to stay within the bounds of the regulatory issues. So,
Okay, Mike. So I'm going to have Craig and Marty quickly comment. We're run out of time. Craig, what about in the aerospace industry? Do they recognize the product cybersecurity versus the infrastructure cybersecurity, the differences between the two? And what should we do to help our customers in the training that you do?
Yeah, so they
Short
they
answer,
do see
sorry.
quite a difference in between the two. The difference in aerospace, so is there's not a lot of embedded software suppliers, right? That is kind of a smaller area of the industry, of the supply base, right? But they do see a difference, and there's been quite a few infrastructure-wise cybersecurity attacks lately within the aerospace industry. It's happened more and more frequently. And a lot of the aerospace suppliers are very small, so they don't have a large IT department that can handle those types of things. A lot of them are a one-man show. So that sort of poses a little bit of a problem. But yeah, so they are working on it. They are more and more companies are going 27001 for the cybersecurity side of things. They are implementing that. They're not necessarily headed down the road of certification, but they are making themselves compliant with a lot of the controls that are in there. So, and then I'll let Marty answer too. So
yeah, with Marty, in terms of you know, from an automotive perspective.
Yeah, so there's two standards out there. There's a common one. It's ISO 21434, which is cybersecurity for the automobile itself, right? So how do we protect the automobile from cybersecurity attacks? The new ISO 27001 standard, which came out in 2022, actually added the term cybersecurity to its title. It wasn't in there prior to that. The older version didn't list it. So it's actually in both. And then if you revert back to IATF, we actually see references, or at least the intent in terms of infrastructure, and also for contingency planning, back to having a robust information security management system. And as I said, the OEMs now are asking for a TSAC certification, which mirrors controls from 27001. But one thing I think that the point of confusion is that even aerospace companies can go for TSAC's approval as well, depending on how much information they share between themselves and their customers. So anyways, that's my perspective on.
Well, thank you very much, guys. So this is a, you know, periodic update we plan to do. The next big ISO meeting is in March, and we'll try to do maybe another one in April. We'll do at least, you know, 2 a year till it becomes really interesting. And for all of you watching, what we'll do is give you an update by this webinar in terms of what's happening and all the changes that impact our lives here who work with different standards. With that, I want to thank you all very much, all the speakers and all of you attending. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Interact with you soon enough. Thank you. Bye-bye.